Hi guys, this is Jen Curtis. I specialise in pregnancy and postpartum fitness, and in the past I've made videos about exercise during pregnancy. I made a whole series on that, and since then I've discovered a lot more and been learning a lot more, and I'm very happy with that series. I just kind of want to add to that, just add some more details, just kind of some more, haven't really planned this video, just kind of some more thoughts that I've had going around my mind about this. And I just want to start by saying that when we talk about fitness during pregnancy and what to do and what not to do, we want to talk very specific. We want to be very specific, and we want to individualize. We want to really take the individual differences into account. This is extremely important and something that's really often overlooked. So first of all, it's really important to avoid overgeneralizations, like you shouldn't lift more than 3 kilos or like 1.5 kilos, because this is a totally arbitrary weight. And when you train as many different people as I do, you come to realize that 3 kilos is or 5 kilos or 10 kilos or whatever is just so relative to the person. Some people will really struggle, some women will really struggle to lift 3 kilos for a certain number of reps with good form in a given movement, and another woman will do it so easily that she's not actually doing anything. So we have to take that individual difference into account. If 3 kilos is heavy for one woman because she's that's rare, and again, it depends on the muscle group that's working. So 3 kilos is a lot heavier to be pressing overhead than it is to do in a deadlift, which uses all of your posterior chain. It might be that, for example, I see many women during pregnancy, after pregnancy, before pregnancy, whatever, who struggle to do a full squat with just their own body weight. They struggle to get in and out of a squat for a number of repetitions with no added weight. So adding 3 kilos turns their technique to shit, and they're going to be struggling to get out of that squat, and they're going to be making all kinds of compensations to get out of it. So and that's something that's quite common that I see. So unless you have established a good squat, there's actually very little, a good body weight squat, a good air squat, there's actually very little point adding weight to that. And a squat is a really great example where how much women can differ. I have some women that have like a lot of hip instability and really struggle with just the body weight, and they struggle with the mobility and whatever else. And then you have other women that seem to just put weight on the squat and it just never seems heavy for them. And I've had a couple of cases of women who quickly get up to like a 50 kilo back squat, seemingly with very little problem. And there's such huge variation between those two extremes, and then there's a whole load of variation in between, and we need to really think about individualizing for that person, for that trainee, and this is where overgeneralizations like don't use more than 3 kilos or whatever can be so misleading, because that's not going to be enough weight for someone in order to create change. Another overgeneralization that I really dislike is, well, you shouldn't push yourself during pregnancy. Again, like, what does that mean? Sometimes I've had women. It's not that I necessarily disagree with the statement that you shouldn't push yourself in pregnancy, because I very much agree that pregnancy is not the time to be running a marathon, or it's not the time to be trying to establish a 1 rep max, or competing in powerlifting, or any other extreme version, whether it's extreme endurance, extreme weight, or extreme like I have no problem with CrossFit during pregnancy, but doing a CrossFit workout where you smash yourself over like 10, 20 minutes and you floor yourself and completely exhaust yourself from a range of different movements, pregnancy isn't the time to do that. And so we do want to take away all of those extremes of training. But most people's understanding of what pushing yourself is way, way less. It's just not, it doesn't even get close to pushing yourself. So for example, I was training a woman recently who is 7 months pregnant, and she did 15 body weight air squats, and she looked like she hadn't really done anything. So I suggested maybe we should add a teeny bit of weight to the squat, maybe start with holding 2 kilos in front of you. And she was like, but I thought you're not supposed to push yourself during pregnancy. And I want to make clear I didn't push her to do that weight or say, no, that's ridiculous, like you have to do this, because that's also not a very helpful approach. But so I had a discussion with her at that point about what does pushing yourself mean. If you can do 15 reps with no difficulty whatsoever, without looking like you're really doing anything, are we really doing anything? Are we going to create physiological changes that you want to create? Like, as in, what are your goals? We should start by establishing what her goals are, and her specific goals were to get stronger. I can't make her stronger by getting her to do body weight air squats that are easy for her over and over and over again, and like hundreds of reps of them. That's not the definition of getting stronger. That's not going to make her stronger. That's not going to make her body stronger and more resilient to external forces and whatever else. Now, at the same time, I'm not like, right, okay, let's get a barbell on your back, let's just load you up with 15 kilos, 20 kilos, whatever. I'm suggesting let's add 2 kilos to the squat and see if that pushes you a little bit more. Normally, you'll find that, 2, 3, 4 kilos to the squat, for somebody who finds an air squat very, very easy, that will make it quite challenging. But then the next time they come in to train, because of that overload that you applied, the next training session, they'll be stronger, and 4 kilos will feel very easy, or 3 kilos, or whatever it is that you did, and then you can apply progressive overload again and add a little bit more weight to the squat, and then that will feel easy. But if we don't do that, and if we just say, okay, you're pregnant, so I don't want to push you, so let's just stay with the body weight air squat, there's no sense of progression, there's no sense of overload, and there's no training stimulus for the body to adapt to. So there is such a thing as doing too little in pregnancy. And while it's true that pregnancy isn't a time to push yourself, it's also a time when, while it's true that you shouldn't push yourself, we've got to be very specific of what that means, like pushing yourself too hard and too much, and very large amounts of weight or very long periods of endurance training, that's pushing yourself too much. But adding 2 kilos to a squat isn't gonna break you. It's not gonna cause damage. It's not gonna cause injury. In fact, it might be just that little bit more stimulus that you need. And really, if you talk to people that do train people with strength training protocols, what I'm suggesting is really a very, very, very moderate and a very, very cautious way of approaching progressive overload when it comes to weight, when it comes to adding load. But then if you look at, if you take it into a kind of into the Pilates, Zumba, yoga kind of realm that most people are comfortable with in terms of when it comes to women's training and pregnancy training and so on and so forth, that feels like a very it feels very scary to them, and it feels very like this is a lot a lot like this, you know, you shouldn't be adding weight during pregnancy, or a woman shouldn't be lifting this much weight or whatever. So there's like this kind of discord between the two worlds, and I'm trying to kind of create bridge a gap a little bit, which is why I often talk in very cautious terms. And I'm never going to please anyone, because people from the strength training world are going to see what my approach is very kind of cautious and too cautious, and people from the kind of more traditional women's training world are going to see this as quite an extreme way of approaching things. But we've got to understand that a given weight and a given load and a given stimulus and a given volume and a given whatever, they're all going to be relative to different women. They're all going to feel very different to different women. So I really wanted to kind of make that point and kind of clarify that way of thinking, is that yes, we don't want to push the woman too far, but what is pushing her too far? Like, if she can easily press 3 kilos overhead like that, what we shouldn't go up to 4 kilos to see if she can do that. Like, we're not talking about suddenly jumping up to huge amounts of weight. We're building this like gradually and trying to find something that's challenging for her and not gonna exhaust her or injure her, but it is gonna is challenging enough to create a training stimulus that is gonna then help her progress and get stronger or obtain whatever goals it is that she wants to obtain. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about that area of things. I hope I kind of explained myself well. I feel like it's a little bit all over the place, but they're just some thoughts that I was having around that. Likewise, recently I came across a comment where, you know, you shouldn't do wall balls during pregnancy. And it got me thinking about a lot of things, because who shouldn't do wall balls during pregnancy? Let's talk about a 6 kilo wall ball to about a 2.5 meter target. I don't know exactly the height. Who shouldn't do that? Because a woman who's in her final trimester, regardless of what her training level was before, probably shouldn't do wall balls. She probably shouldn't have a 6 kilo wall ball falling down from a great height towards her, and then she's trying to catch it when she's tired, because if she misses it, she could hit the top of her belly, and, you know, we could have a rush to the emergency room. All kinds of horrible things can happen. You can imagine. You don't need much imagination to for your mind to go different places. Like, that's not a risk that we should be taking during a final trimester, and probably not the second trimester of training. But let's talk about first trimester. First trimester, she doesn't have a belly yet. So then we have to also differentiate between someone who's trained and someone who's not. So a woman who's trained in CrossFit and who does wall balls all the time, who has a pretty decent back squat, maybe she's squatting 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 kilos, I don't know, but a lot of women squat a lot of weight in CrossFit. 6 kilos, chucking a 6 kilo ball up and down, and obviously her overhead press is going to be, we can relate all of this to what her 5 rep max or 1 rep max is in a back squat and in an overhead press. And if she's got a decent overhead press and like pressing 30 kilos overhead and squatting 50 kilos, why can't she be chucking a 6 kilo wall ball around? What's the problem with that? The belly is not a problem yet. There's no way. You could argue that she could hit herself in the belly, and you will have to weigh up that risk or reward, but it's a woman who has been doing CrossFit for a while, who's been doing wall balls for a while, is very unlikely to have that kind of thing happen if she knows what she's doing and she's well coordinated with the movement. And chances are is even that even if it did hit her, it probably hit her in the chest, and nothing would really happen. But it is something that you have to weigh up. But everything's a risk. Getting in a car and driving to work is a risk. So it is definitely something that you have to consider. But the risk here is very, very, very low. But secondly, like, then the argument is that it's kind of explosive and can be quite hard on the joints, which are obviously not just more lax than they are prior to pregnancy. But again, a 6 kilo weight, someone who's trained won't just be crashing down in the bottom of that squat. She'll be cushioning that load, and cushioning it into the squat and coming back up. And if she's also listening to her body, she'll be breaking those wall balls up into sets that are manageable for her and where her form isn't breaking down. That's also important during pregnancy. Whereas we can get away with a little bit more outside of pregnancy and kind of start chucking a heavy weight around and messing up a little bit, and kind of like our form can start to break down. It's not that big a deal. And in pregnancy, I think that's one of those risk reward scenarios that we do need to more on the side of caution. Like, our form shouldn't be breaking down. We shouldn't be crashing into a squat. We should and just like bouncing off of all of our ligaments and tendons in those positions. So. But again, someone who is strong, a woman who's strong and who's well trained in this, can break down can break down the sets into manageable amounts so that she's not crashing on her ligaments and on her joints. And this isn't a heavy weight for her. The other major problem is it can really raise your heart rate. But again, breaking it down into manageable sets can really make that more manageable. Again, just to go back to the kind of the joints thing a second, I don't feel I fully like explained that. It's like going into, say, doing like squat cleans with your 1 rep max. Yeah, you're going to be bouncing off. There's going to be some like there's going to be some impact there. But doing squat cleans with half of your 1 rep max or 5 rep max, whatever, with a lightweight that you can control, that your form doesn't break down, stopping before your heart rate's too high. In the first trimester, when there's no belly in the way, is there any reason why we shouldn't be doing this? Like, because, and maybe to somebody who doesn't do CrossFit or who doesn't do squat cleans or who doesn't do wall balls, this might seem just crazy. Why are we even having this discussion? Like, you shouldn't do that in pregnancy. It's obvious. But to someone who does that and who shows up to her box 3-4 times a week, and who does these movements week in and week out and who enjoys that, you want to keep doing the things that you love to do as much as you can. And there are things that you need to take into account, but the woman's mental health is also super duper important, and keeping up doing those things that make her feel like her, those things that feel like a part of her identity, those things that she enjoys doing. When you start taking those things out, somebody who's like been doing CrossFit or been doing intense exercise for any period of time and who's kind of addicted to it, you start taking that out of her life. I mean, a woman who's going through pregnancy is already dealing with enough. She's already going through a lot of hormonal changes. She's likely feeling very sick or feeling very tired. You start taking out these things that she loves, start taking out these things that she enjoys, and you can really start messing with her head. You can really start, depression can start setting in. Someone who's been doing CrossFit for a while doesn't necessarily want to go and start doing Pilates, and Pilates isn't the best thing to be doing in pregnancy anyway. It's very limited what you can actually do. So like, you want to keep her doing what she can do for as long as she can do it, and you have to be sensible about this. You have to put the health of the mother and the baby first, but we also have that part of the health of the mother is her mental health. So we also have to be really, really mindful of, like, if we don't need to take something out, we shouldn't be taking it out, which is why it's so important to have a really honest conversation with ourselves about what we should and should not be doing. and why we really need to talk about anatomy and physiology, because if you take something out that doesn't need to come out, it's a shame. For example, a lot of women can do handstands for quite a while during pregnancy, and there's no real issue with it. So if that's something that she loves to do and she's really good at, isn't that a shame to take that out? There's some women love to run, and if she can run through her first trimester or through the first half of her pregnancy, isn't that a shame to take that out for her? Like, because that's a part of who she is. That's a part of how she identifies herself. Now, she absolutely needs education about breathing, about her pelvic floor, about impact, about how to listen to her body, what to look out for. But we need this information anyway. And there are lots of women who aren't doing any exercise, who are ending up with pelvic floor dysfunction, who are ending up with pelvic organ prolapse, who are ending up with diastasis recti, who are ending up with back pain or other musculoskeletal dysfunction. So why that's an issue separately that needs to be dealt with anyway. Women need better education about those parts of their bodies and how to care for themselves during pregnancy, regardless of exercise. And then when it comes to exercise, we need to be talking about, okay, what do we take out and what do we keep in, and at what stage do we need to take things out? So it might look like first trimester for a woman who does CrossFit, for example. First trimester, she's got to start cutting down on the weights. Like if she's back squatting, she's doing 5 rep maxes, 1 rep maxes, breath holding, all of that stuff. She needs to start to adjust how she's doing that. She needs to start thinking about her breathing more. She may need to go down in weight. She may not be able to push the same amount of weights, and that's okay. You don't need to back squat 50 kilos or 60 kilos or anything else at the end of your pregnancy. It's not going to help you be stronger for pregnancy or postpartum. I know it's a very big part of your identity, but it's not necessary. She may need to start cutting down on it. It doesn't mean that she can't back squat anymore. It just means that she's going to have to back squat for maybe more reps, maybe the same number of reps, but she's going to need to breathe out through those reps. Then she's going to have to really pay attention to form. She may need to start lowering down the intensity of her workouts. She may not be able to work to the same intensity, and she probably shouldn't work to the same intensity. Really, really, really high heart rates for a really long period of time and really high levels of exhaustion. She may need to start reeling back on that. Really intense movements involve a lot of impact, like heavy cleans, heavy snatches, squat cleans. These may need to come out fairly early on, but the rest can stay in. There's a lot of stuff that can stay in. Now, look, going back to the wall ball example, someone who's got a decent back squat, decent overhead press, why not do it? But then the same woman, another woman might not have a good back squat. She might struggle with back squats, and so actually throwing and catching 6 kilos is really challenging for her, and her form breaks down. She should take that out. So this has to be really, really, really individualized. Finally, and then as you move into the second trimester, there's going to be more things that need to start coming out as you start getting a belly. As you start, it's mainly about the belly in that trimester. You're going to have to start. You're not going to be able to do burpees past a certain point. You're not going to be able to do push-ups past a certain point. As soon as there's a belly, things like ring muscle ups. Like I don't have a ring muscle up anyway, so I won't be doing that at any point. But there's no reason why you can't do that during your first trimester. If you're really strong in ring muscle ups, go for it. But if you have once you've got a belly, even if you're really strong in ring muscle ups, there's lots of videos online of women who are doing like ring muscle ups, and you see their belly bulging, you see the linea alba bulging, you see you see that like or you see all of the rectus abdominis bulge forward. Now we don't actually have, just to make a final point here, is that we don't actually have solid scientific evidence that says that bulging causes diastasis recti or that it worsens diastasis recti, but we think it does. We think that that's not good for the tissues of the abdomen, but it might be okay. It's just, that's just a little clause. Sometimes some of these things that we say 100% are not okay to do is not necessary. I recently got told by a family member, a very old family member, like, you need to stop lifting everything heavy, because I know someone who, she had twins, she was pregnant with twins, she was in her last trimester, we kept telling her, stop lifting heavy things, because she kept working, and then she lifted something heavy and she had a miscarriage, and it was because she lifted something heavy. Again, like, she could have had a miscarriage anyway. We have no way of knowing that, like, correlation is not the same as causation. Just because one thing happened does not mean it leads directly to another thing. And just because this woman lifted a heavy thing, there's no evidence to show that lifting heavy things during pregnancy will cause miscarriage. Lifting very heavy things during pregnancy could cause musculoskeletal injuries, and it could cause injury, especially if you're holding your breath and you're doing Valsalva and blah 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 blah. It could cause injury to, we believe that it could cause injury to your core and to your pelvic floor, or your pelvic floor is part of your core, and so that's the main reason for not holding your breath and lifting heavy things during pregnancy, like that bearing down on pelvic floor muscles that are already stretched. We believe that that's a major issue. We don't 100% know. That's what we believe, but we really have no evidence to show that lifting heavy things is going to cause miscarriage. In fact, the many women lift very heavy things throughout their entire pregnancy and they don't miscarriage. That again isn't proof that it doesn't cause it, but we don't have any solid evidence that says that it does cause it. This is over 25 minutes now, so I'm going to wrap up this little rant. I'm going to try and put all of these kind of topics in a more organized kind of format, maybe separate videos where I could talk about a very specific topic. I want to talk about first trimester pregnancy exercise, second trimester pregnancy exercise, third trimester pregnancy exercise. I want to talk about Pilates during pregnancy. I want to talk about yoga during pregnancy. I want to talk about running during pregnancy. I want to talk about I might take all of the kind of movements that we could possibly do, say using, I really like CrossFit, so I might use CrossFit and sort of break up all the different movements and then do a video on each movement. Okay, wall balls, back squats, air squats, kettlebell push press, and talk about why we should do them, why we shouldn't do them, what the debate is, what the potential issues might be, whether we should do it in first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, who should do it, who shouldn't do it. These are all and kind of break them up into smaller videos where I talk about these different topics in sort of greater detail, and just so that it's more organized and more separated, because this was just a little bit of a rant today, just some things that are on my mind, and I've been struggling to think how I'm gonna, like, where to start, like how I'm gonna start with like a video on like what topic I'm going to start with and just how to break it down. So I've decided to stop thinking about it, and I'm just going to make a video with a bit of a brain dump on everything that I've been thinking about. I'm going to put it out there into the world and see what the response is. I may get 0 response, which tells me that this kind of video is not helpful, which is kind of what I'm expecting. Or I may get, this may generate more conversation, more questions. If anyone can actually manage to sit through this half-hour video, I'm hoping that it will just trigger a bit of thought, a bit of food for thought, and hopefully trigger some questions that I can then delve into greater depth, and in a more organized way. But you got to just get started. Sometimes you just got to dive in and get started and just give it a go. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not the end of the world. So that's where I'm at right now. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like it, subscribe to my channel if you want more content like this, and post questions below, email me, Facebook me with specific messages, with specific questions that I can then address in this kind of format. Thanks, bye.